We are going to talk about a little bit about tree inventories, and then we're going to go into a feature on the statewide application that can be used by any municipality or any tree manager. And for those of you in Washington State, you can still use it as well, or any other state. There's no restrictions on it as well. So let's talk briefly about tree inventories. I have no notes, just going to wing it, and talk about the software itself. About your tree inventories, you can't manage what you don't measure. So I talked with urban foresters from coast to coast, and Oregon's somewhere in the middle in terms of municipal tree inventories. We have some municipalities that do manage their trees, and some that have a paper copy, and some that have nothing going on whatsoever. I give us kind of a C- right now compared to other states and how they're keeping track of their trees. So if you're not being able to measure your trees, you don't know what you have, you don't know how you're going to be treating them, caring for them, species diversity, all these things that are kind of metrics of your inventory. Tree inventories are not one size fits all. You know, what information about your trees is desired to answer your most pressing management questions, and then what is possible with the available resources and funding. It hasn't been mentioned yet, but I'm sure all of you saw the $1.5 billion for urban forestry greening. The federal government is really looking through using urban forestry as a tool for equity and tree equity, and so there is quite a bit of funding out there. Today was the first deadline for municipalities to apply. This is a 10-year funding cycle, so there will be a lot more funding opportunities out there, and the state of Oregon has also received $3.75 million for urban greening efforts, and this is going to go to a lot of things, including tree inventories, canopy assessments, management plans, wood reuse. So a tree inventory, you know, you don't have to go in all the way and do the entire inventory at once, though you can. A full inventory is comprehensive. It measures the health and needs of the urban forest. You're going to collect quite a bit of information, nearly all of it, and you're going to have kind of the biggest hurdle to overcome right then and there. But you can also do a phased inventory. A lot of communities, if they don't get the funding they're looking for, they might break up their inventory into different segments, and that can be whatever is important for the community. We saw in Colorado, community who went for their most disadvantaged communities first to inventory their trees. They felt these communities are going to be the hardest hit by EAD. They're not likely to have treatment, so they need to know what they have and then go into other communities at different phases. It's going to have a little bit more understanding of what the financial burden will be distributed throughout, and you can kind of extrapolate from there. And at its smallest size, you can do a sample inventory or just a random selection of trees. We've also seen this. It doesn't have to be a lot of trees, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 trees, but something that you think is going to be a sample representative of your community. And this can help, what we've seen do, this can help kind of make the case for more funding to show this is what we have. Clearly we need more information and more money to take care of these things. So who performs the inventory? You can have professionals that are going to collect pretty much all the data fields that you might want to have. The diameter, species, condition, management need, observations, growing space, risk assessment, priority needs. Professionals are going to gather this information, but this does cost a little bit more money. Conversely, you can also use volunteers. City of Portland, very successful in managing volunteers and citizen science to collect trees. You're not probably going to get as much information collected. Volunteers aren't typically tree risk assessors, even good at tree ID for that matter. So doing a little bit of training and getting this going. I'm just talking to some folks in Springfield, Oregon, who are going to be using volunteers to collect as many trees as they can. Hopefully I can go down and help out with some little bit of tree ID. So that being said, the statewide application does exist for municipalities to use. So I was talking with James Paisley. He's the urban forester for Grants Pass now. And as you can see, he's not out there all day, every day inventorying his trees. He was there on the 5th, and he collected a few trees. He was there on the 12th, and what he does is every time he's out in the neighborhood and has a few extra minutes, he's inventorying street trees to add to his map. So if you go to Grants Pass, in the statewide application, you can see he's slowly adding these trees in, adding information in, adding photos, getting an idea where the trees are, because he's going in for funding to do a tree inventory, but he can do what he can in the time being. Some of these are problem trees that may show up again. This is the statewide application, pg-cloud.com/Oregon. Chrome works really well because it will locate you. With we have a GIS location that will bring you right to where you are. You can use other ones. Chrome works pretty well. If you go to the statewide application, it's going to show up with the landing page first, and one part of that landing page is currently cut off unless you turn your phone horizontal. You'll see tree map, add a tree, and more resources. And more resources is where you can go to sign up to be added to the statewide application if you are a municipality. However, if you're a nonprofit or another organization that wants to utilize the statewide app, you merely just need approval or an agreement by someone at the city that says you can go and collect tree data for your community. That's part of what ODF has set up for the tree plotter application. But this is the landing page, and you can see the cities we have here. So we're hoping more communities will go because we made it more available. Before it was kind of hidden, you didn't know where the sign-up form was. But go there if you want to go to more resources. We recently updated this. And now you can go right to this link and apply for a tree plotter account with us, fill out this form. And this is what the form looks like. So if you get this, it's a Word document, download it, fill it out, get approval, and send it to Brittany to be added to the map. All right, so back on the main page, we do have an Emerald Ash Borer cost calculator. If you do have your trees in there, and even if you don't have your number of trees, you can make some assumptions about your tree count and add to the calculator. So we're going to run through this real quick. If you're curious, it's on the upper left-hand corner here of the hub, or the legend up top. So by clicking that, it's going to bring down a menu, and we're going to walk through it real quick. Kind of a scenario with Eugene, because they have a pretty good tree count on ash trees right there. So welcome. It's going to give you some notes about what this tool is for. And then you're going to choose your management activities. So it defaults to a 10-year time span. You can change that to whatever you want. I just stuck with the 10 years. And we're going to look at all different activities, although you can just select one if you want to. So we're going to look at what it costs to remove our trees, what it costs to replant, and what it costs to treat our trees every 3 years. I kept the percent of removable trees at 50%. Not every homeowner is going to replace their tree in their front yard. It's just a matter of fact. But if you want 100%, maybe if you're just looking at your city trees and you're going to do 100% replacement, then you can move the removal tab wherever you want. I chose the city of Eugene because they have a pretty complete data set. But you can scroll down from this menu and choose whatever is in the department or in the state tree plotter application. Alternatively, you can just enter a number of trees that you have. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 89,000 trees that Eugene has that you can see over here, and we're going to filter out just everything in the Fraxinus genus because that's what we're treating. Right there, we're looking at about 90,000 trees. So the advanced filter tool you're going to use to add in the genus, and all you're going to do is if you, right now there's no filter besides the city applied, but you can add a field of genus, you can add common name, you can do whatever you want to add onto this filter. But we chose genus Fraxinus, so we're going to select all of those and we're going to hit apply right here. This is going to then filter out all trees that have been listed as a Fraxinus. So we have all our white ashes all the way down, black ash. You can see that it collected and filtered out only these trees. So we're only filtering by these trees now. Current filter, Eugene, tree filter, Fraxinus. And so you could do this for other genuses if you have Quercus or whatever else you want to add in. If you wanted Fraxinus and what was the other tree that was Fringe tree? Is that also susceptible? You could add in that as well. All right. This is where you're going to have to make some assumptions on management costs. And I think when I looked at why it's kind of range of costs, I was about in the middle for some of these. So you can You make these estimates. This is filled in blank. I just put these numbers in: $2,500 or $250 for removal of a 3-inch caliper tree or less, $500 for a 3 to 6, so on and so forth. And then planting cost per tree. This was about the high end of what we saw replanting costs for. But if you're getting a nice, good quality tree in there, then $400 is about it. And then I talked to Allison Harrell at Rainbow and asked her what's the range and treatment costs. Also, Wyatt said about $3 to $13 per inch of DBH. So we have this at $10 inch of DBH. So we've made some assumptions here, but this is helping kind of get an idea of how much does it cost to remove, replace, and treat these trees, and how does that show up for our community. So we hit apply, and we're looking at basically everything we put in here: our time span, our total trees removed, and a really large removal cost, because what it did is it took all those 9,000 trees in Fraxinus, and it applied that $250 to every tree that was 3 inches smaller, that $500 to every tree that's got a DBH of 3 to 6 inches, so on. And so we've got our summarized removal cost based on that list of costs and that list of trees in that matrix. So we're looking over 10 years that it would cost Eugene nearly $7 million to remove all of their trees based on that cost. Planting, this was a 50-50 removal and replacement cost, about $1.7 million to replace those trees. And combined, there they are. And the treatment cost to treat every tree that they could was only about $2 million over 10 years, because you're planting treating every 3 years. So you can see that treatment really less over time than removing all your trees. Obviously, this is a tool. It's not an exact science. There's going to be some assumptions you are and aren't going to make. But based on the EAB seminar that we had just 3 or 4 months ago, treatment really comes out on top in a lot of cases, both for cost and keeping trees. Of course, there's going to be some really trash ash trees out there that are in terrible spots already that are on top that you're probably just going to remove and replace anyway. But you can use this treatment cost to make some assumptions. All right, so we're going to break down further the removal costs. This just goes into what I was saying before about the 6 to 12 trees. How many do we have? So they've got a lot. They have a lot of trees that are 6 to 12 inches in diameter. Allison, what's the minimum size you can treat for an ash tree?
6 inches for injection.
Okay, 6-inch injection. Okay. So there's a lot of trees here that can be injected and a lot here that likely can't. Maybe that's a soil drench, maybe that's something else. And then they don't have many trees above 30 inches. However, these could be some really great trees in parks that are worth treating. These could be really nice shade trees that are worth treating. And so that is quite a bit of money, but maybe worth it for these parks where these trees shade quite a bit and make a big difference. So if you've got your information, your tree inventory information in there, you've got a lot more information you can pull from and a lot more assumptions you can make. Planting costs, we're looking at per tree, removals and replacement, total trees to plant, and total cost per year, total planting costs. So we're removing, we're replacing, and we've got quite a bit of money. I think this is something that could be funded. That's not out of this question. And then on to treatment costs. So time span, we chose 10 years, kind of on an even number, or an even number for an uneven frequency. We're looking at, on average, 10 inches in diameter, or $10 per inch diameter. And same kind of thing, we're looking at our treatment costs down here, although we're not sure we're treating anything under 3 inches, so you might have to take these numbers out. But the most costs are going to those 6 to 12 inch trees right there. All right. Tracking species diversity and size distribution, I should say, in tree plotter. But we're not just using the EAB tool. We're going to be doing, kind of get an idea of what's going on in your community. We're still in Eugene. So in the map, in the tree plotter application, go up to the hub tool, statistics, and then we can look at tree diversity. You also have tree health, tree size composition, ecosystem benefits, a lot of things that you can get an idea visually of what's going on. You can download these maps easily as a PDF or a JPEG. But here we're just pulling up the most common genera in Eugene, and of their inventory, nearly a quarter are Acer species, and about 16% are Quercus, and nearly 14% of their tree canopy are ash trees, which is quite a bit of ash trees. So this is where the inventory is going to come in handy, understanding what do we have and how could we be affected. You don't really want this many Acer species. You need to increase diversity here. Asian longhorn beetle, were it to come here, would decimate Eugene because that is a real big host of that. And we're also looking at most common species here, so quite a bit of Douglas fir as well, and big leaf maple. So big leaf maple probably making up a big part of that Acer. Makes sense. And so if you're using the application, the filter tool is going to be the best way to kind of search and find those things you're looking for. You're looking for all your worst condition ash trees to get an idea of what that is. If you put a condition rating on these trees, you can stack filtering and really use this tool to identify maybe blind spots in your urban forest if you have an inventory. So, as I mentioned at the top, there's a lot more funding in there for urban forestry. This is going to be a decade of great opportunities to plant and monitor and write management plans about your urban forest, because as everything we talked about, I'm preaching the choir here, the trees add a lot of benefit to our communities, and so we need to know what we have in order to manage it. Right now, I believe that is a completely different program. They're using it more for monitoring, tracking. However, if it's Esri-based or GIS and it's a shapefile, it can be imported into Tree Plotter here. So they're both independent. This is more for municipalities and nonprofits to track the trees that they have. But it is funded originally through a grant for 3 years through ODF. And I know Scott's looking for renewal. The state's looking for renewal for this exact reason. We're only 3 years into it, and this is a management tool you want to be using for a very long time. So state funded, grant funded. I'm not sure where the grant came from, but they're going to continue on with it for sure. And like I said, you can download your shapefile and export your tree data at any time as well. On the legend bar on the far right, if you scroll down, we do have canopy assessment information for all of Washington County. So you can look at the most recent canopy cover, 2021, I believe, and all the way back to 2010, and you can see a canopy coverage change over time, as well as a lot of other metrics. So look for that in the right bar underneath all the towns and cities. This would be great. We do have Mississippi, for example, uses this for invasive species tracking. It used to be called Stop the Pop because they had, I can't remember the name of that plant, but yes, there are communities who are using this in wetlands and riparian zones. We have a reference layer importer, so you can add a reference layer, a HUC 12 watershed, or a wetland boundary, whatever you need to, and you can inventory the trees in there. There's no limits to how many trees you can add. It's just about how dense those areas are. Want to add those in, add that to our master list for Oregon, because you're right, if you're selling them here in Nancy, then it's not just Eugene who might have it, Tualatin might have these trees, Beaverton might have these trees, and we want to keep track of the cultivars in case, hey, something's exciting about one of these cultivars, we find that none of them are killed by EAV or something like that. So there's a researcher in California who's using our data sets to identify trees that could, or new cultivars that could withstand like really bad, really difficult urban environments.